Welcome to this week's Future Toolbox podcast. We explore the Z to A of life skills, where each letter stands for a topic and essential tool to help you get ahead in life. Meet Jules and Mark, creators of the multi-award-winning Future Toolbox, and enjoy their straightforward approach to creating growth mindsets that help people turn their dreams into realities. Whether you're a teen in education, a parent, a teacher, or part of a community group, start creating positive habits from today.
Hello and welcome to our latest Z to A podcast with me, Jules, and Mark from the multi-award winning Future Toolbox.
Hello everybody and welcome back.
Hi, now this is where, as always, we pick a letter from the alphabet and choose a topic to discuss how you can use our tools to improve your own personal development and life. So Mr. Kennedy, it's over to you to let us know what we've chosen.
This episode we've chosen the letter S for self-discipline.
Wow. Self-discipline, it's a good one, this one.
It sounds very responsible, doesn't it? But the reason why we've chosen this is because this time of year is where we've always met loads of students that are coming into the run-up to their exams. And some of them, bless them, are saying, well, I haven't started revising yet. Yes. So there's a lack of self-discipline. And some are saying, I'm really struggling to stay on track, stay motivated, stay focused and what have you. So self-discipline is all about putting yourself in a position to get your best possible results. But it's not just about being at school. It's a life skill that we have to use throughout the whole of our lives, really, don't we?
We do. And it's a great thing. And you don't have to live your whole life completely self-disciplined. But if there's something that you really want to achieve, then having this full understanding of how to be disciplined enough to achieve your goals is a fantastic thing to be able to do. But what is self-discipline? What's the sort of definition of it?
Well, the definition, I guess, is the ability to push yourself forward. And it's about staying motivated to take action and then taking the action. And that's irrespective of how you're feeling. So you may be thinking, oh, I'm not really motivated to do it today. I'll have a day off. And that's fine sometimes to have a day off. But is that going to affect your goal? And if it's going to affect your goal and you can't take a day off.
Yeah, if you're self-disciplined, it's about putting off certain things and not doing them in pursuit of that long-term goal. And if it's that goal is something that you really want to achieve, then maybe not doing some of the nice things for a short period of time is worth the result in the end. Yeah,
you've got to think what your end goal is and what you're prepared to sacrifice towards getting that goal. I think sometimes we get hung up a little bit on the high profile celebrity type, athlete type people who have to dedicate their whole lives to something and have to sacrifice everything else to achieve that. So if you want to be a 100-metre sprinter in less than 10 seconds, you're not going to be able to have a lifestyle that doesn't support that. You need to be training.
Well, if you think of Cristiano Ronaldo, I mean, he's a perfect example, I guess, of that self-discipline. He knows what he wants and he has made those sacrifices, but he's got the lifestyle and everything that he chose and that he wanted.
That's it. But we're talking here about students who were sitting their exams have got to make a few sacrifices over the next few months in the run-up to their final exams, or if your exams are next year, making a few little sacrifices to get your revision right, to get your study right, to do the little bits and pieces that you need to do. Now, also, the hard thing about that is there's a lot of people that don't actually want to do their exams. But the fact is they're going to be here and you've got an opportunity to prove yourself to yourself and create some really good habits along the way.
Yeah, the benefits of having self-discipline will help you to achieve your goals, but also it helps improve your mental health. So people practicing self-discipline actually report higher levels of self-confidence and happiness, and possibly things like independence, because they've stuck to their plan and they've achieved what they set out to do.
And also that could have a knock-on effect onto your physical health. If you're creating positive habits around something like study, for example, then if you can discipline yourself to do something that maybe isn't what you exactly want to do, imagine how much you'll be able to discipline yourself for something that you do really want to do. And if you want to achieve something in sport or activity or fitness or around your own physical well-being and keep fit, then that would be an easy transferable skill. So even if we're, say, talking about this exam process that not a lot of us like doing, if you can get that bit right, you can get the bits you enjoy right.
Very true. I think it helps to make you more resilient. I think it can enhance your ability to bounce back from adversity. In life, you're always going to come across obstacles, but if you have that desire and that skill to be disciplined, then you have better control over certain things that might come into your life.
I guess that's the benefits of self-discipline. So how do we develop self-discipline?
I would say the first thing to do is work out what the goal is. If you haven't got a goal, then you've got nothing to aim for. But we often say this, it's important not to start out with goals that are too ambitious, I think. When you're learning this skill of discipline, set some smaller goals and then increase the level of challenge slowly over time as you get more confident and you have that belief in yourself to stay on track.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice. And if you do have a Mount Everest sized goal at somewhere down the line, then set mini goals along the way towards that. For example, if you want to achieve a career of something that you need to study for years and years and years for, your first goal's got to be to get the GCSEs, hasn't it? Break that goal down even smaller and think about which GCSEs you need, which grades you need, and then you break that down smaller and think, right, what do I need to do in order to achieve that? And then that's where you bring your self-discipline. So starting with that goal is really key, but sometimes moving the target a little bit closer and making it a little bit smaller is going to be a lot easier to manage than trying to get a bit overwhelmed with that huge goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So remember, starting small is the best way to start developing that discipline.
The next step is to think about your why or your motivation. We've done lots of work with students over the years on what is motivation. Motivation is a really difficult thing to define sometimes, because if you're sitting in school at the moment and thinking, well, my goal is to pass my GCSEs, but I have no motivation to do the study, I don't enjoy it, then you've got to find your why. Now, your why might be, let's go down the traditional educational route. Let's say you want to graduate, you want to get a degree. Your motivation is to get the degree, but at the moment you don't want to study for a particular GCSE, but you've got to find that motivation, because without taking that path, you can't go all the way on to study and get the degree. Obviously, there are other ways. I'm just picking a traditional route where you go through A-levels, further education, then to higher education. If you want to go down that route, then you need to find that motivation now and think, right, this is where I need to make my sacrifices. That applies to absolutely anything in life. If you want to run a marathon, for instance, and you've never run before in your life, then you need to find your motivation to get your running shoes on and go out the door for your first ever run and feel absolutely awful, because it's going to be really hard if you haven't done that. And if you're feeling not great about something, then the second run is going to be even harder because you didn't enjoy the first one. So you need to find the motivation to think, right, I need to push myself out that door because my why at the end of the line is I want to run the marathon, or I want to go to university, or I want to achieve whatever goal it is.
I think visualising what it's going to be like when you've actually achieved that goal is a great motivator. For example, you just mentioned running. Not the greatest thing for myself, but I'm still doing it because, I'll be honest with you, when I've actually completed a race, the feeling that I get of, wow, I've done that. I've really actually done that. I've enjoyed it. But the actual feeling of accomplishment is so good that I keep doing it. Knowing what that feeling is like is the motivator for me to keep going and doing it. And I think that's something when you're trying to achieve a goal, if you can visualise beforehand what it's going to be like when you cross that finish line, when you get that certificate, whatever it is that you're trying to do, keep that in your mind to help you stay motivated.
Yeah, that's really powerful. It's almost like you need to bottle that feeling.
Yes.
And you've talked about two different levels of motivation there, because one of them is one you've already experienced. So if you've done that race and you know how it feels, you have to bottle that feeling. That's your motivation, that's your why, to feel like that again. But if you've not experienced that yet, so you're running your first race or your first marathon, or you're achieving that goal for the first ever time, you don't know how that's going to feel. So your key word that you said there was visualising how you think that's going to feel. Maybe talking to somebody else who's already experienced that and saying, what was it like? I want to feel like that. Tell me what it was like. Yeah, two different levels of motivation, two different levels of why. Bottle them up.
So you've set your goal, you're looking at your motivation and how to stay motivated. Now this one is something we forget to do sometimes when we're setting our goals or looking at what we want to achieve, is identifying the obstacles. because it's likely that you'll face something whilst you're working towards your goal. You have to think about what may hinder you and how you're going to overcome any obstacles that might come along your pathway. So, for example, if we take the running, you may have an injury. The weather has an impact because not everybody likes running when it's absolutely howling with rain. Howling with rain, is that
howling
the right
with
word?
rain? Yeah.
Is that the right word? The weather's atrocious, and you thinking, oh, I've got to go out and do a few miles. It's difficult to stay motivated.
It is. We could have howling with rain or throwing it down with wind.
Yeah, I didn't think that.
Just realised what you said there then.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really true. We talked about this earlier, didn't we? When we talk about goals, we do sometimes forget those potential pitfalls and things that might get in our way, that might throw us off track. If you're prepared for something like that, if and when it does happen, then you're more aware of it and thinking, oh, right, okay, I was expecting this. So now I've almost got a plan to slightly reroute myself. I remember when I was training for my first half marathon, and I went out one day and I was doing a 6-7 mile run or something. About 2 miles into it, I got the most horrendous pain in my knee. And I thought, I'm never going to walk again. I could barely walk home. I was nearly in tears thinking, that's it. I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to achieve it. And I went to the doctors the following day, like, oh no, what's happening? And he went, oh yeah, you've just started running. It's probably something called runner's knee. Now, I didn't even know what runner's knee was. When I researched it, spoke to a few other people, they went, yeah, that happened to me as well. Probably take a week or so and you'll be fine. And lo and behold, I was. Now, if I'd have known that beforehand, I'd have been able to think, oh, runner's knee, what do I do? And I could reroute it myself, and it would have saved me a little bit of anxiety, I think.
Yeah, and I think for students that are studying, one of the big obstacles is procrastination, because studying can be a little bit tedious at times, but putting it off is only going to add lots more pressure onto yourself. So when you have those feelings of, oh, I'm supposed to be studying this evening, or I've got my hour slot coming up for studying, it's a subject that you're not particularly fond of or keen, but you need to do it. Again, use those powers of motivation that we spoke about to help you get past those feelings of procrastination, of not wanting to do it, and try and turn them round and find ways to get yourself motivated. Let's face it, it's easy to say, do you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it today. And then what might happen is don't do it the next day. And then before you know it, you've put it off for almost a week, and then you're falling really behind. And then it's really hard to catch up. So try not to put yourself into that sort of position. And when you have those feelings of, I don't want to do it, turn it around and say, right, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because this is what I want. So I have to do this. I want to do it. I am going to do it. Change that language, and that will get you motivated to do your studying, hopefully.
And I'm going to put a little self-confession in here, because procrastination is something that happens to us all. And only about half an hour ago, we were sitting there having a little bit of scrolling on social media time, weren't we? And what did you say to us? We need to record this podcast, don't we? Let's get it done now before we have our meeting in an hour or so's time. And then that's out the way, it's ticked off. We could just sit here and procrastinate and scroll.
Yeah, we'll just sit here and waste this hour just scrolling or talking, and then we're on the back foot thinking, oh, we've got a meeting, then we've got to go and pick some things up, and then we've got to go shopping. Then the next thing is we're perhaps rushing to try and do this. So I said, come on, we've got this time, let's use it wisely. And that's a good tip for anybody, is if you have got the time, use it wisely, don't waste it.
And to be honest, we really enjoy recording these podcasts.
We do.
So we're not putting off something we don't enjoy doing.
And that takes us on nicely, actually, to the next tip. When you're developing self-discipline, often then you're trying to break an old habit or a habit that you don't want anymore, and you're trying to replace it with something more productive. Now, that can be quite difficult if the habit that you're trying to do is in a certain time of the day or routine. So breaking it can leave a little bit of a gap. So it's how you fill that and how you use it. But you need to look at what habits you need to create, what habits you need to lose, and work out a way of replacing them and staying on track.
Yeah, probably one of the obvious examples to think of is if you're trying to eat more healthy and your habit is, say, on a lunch break, you have a bag of crisps, a bar of chocolate, or you have cake. if you need to replace that habit, it's really, really difficult because we hook habits to different things. So habit hooking is a positive thing where you can hook a new habit to something when you've got, say, 10 minutes spare time. You could think, right, in that 10 minutes, I'm going to do this. I'm going to hook a habit to it. But if you've got a habit that you've already hooked to something, so your lunch, you eat that piece of junk food at the end of it, that's a lot harder to break. So what you need to do now is think of the new habit to replace that. Now, your new habit might be, instead of eating that bag of crisps, I'm going to eat an apple. And my new habit might be that every morning I have to put the apple in my bag instead of the bag of crisps. Or when I go to the coffee shop, I'm going to buy that instead of that. And you really, really need to discipline yourself, because think about your own goal is, if I'm replacing that worst snack with a good snack, then I'm going to feel ultimately better in an X amount of time, because it could be a weight loss goal or a fitness goal or whatever it's going to be. That's the end goal. And that's where your motivation needs to stay in place and your self-discipline.
And I guess the last real bit of advice is to monitor your progress, because that will show you how far you're coming along towards your goal.
Yeah, that's a really, really good tip. Again, it's something that we've encouraged students to do, is to have a revision plan. Write everything down that you're going to revise and put your plan together. And when you tick stuff off the list, it is so satisfying. We've talked before in previous podcasts where we make a to-do list and even put things on there that we've just done and cross them off straight away, because it is satisfying saying, I've done that, I've completed it. Monitoring your progress, having a tracker, having something that is going to keep you on track. For example, when I did my first running training plan, I had a track of every single run and I put a little tick and a little date and how long it took me to do it. It was fantastic. It really, really worked for me.
And that's it. Having a tracker is brilliant, or a journal, whichever way you want to do it. And it's great, as you just said, to be able to say, right, I've done this. But I tell you what else to do is track how it's made you feel, because that's what you want to bottle, is that feeling of, wow, I've done that. That's made me feel motivated. That's made me feel that I've achieved something. That's lifted my resilience, my happiness. I feel good about myself because I've done that study, or I've done that run, I've done whatever it is. But yeah, track your feelings as well while you're doing this, and then use that as your motivation.
Yeah, and if you don't feel too great and it didn't go as well as you wanted it to, then look at it and think, okay, what can I do to make it better next time? Or what did I do if I'm not feeling very good this time and I didn't feel very good last time? What were the things I'd done before that didn't make it great that I can change for the next times? There could be something in there that you do beforehand that could even put a new habit in place for you to make that even better.
To summarise then, how to build self-discipline is choose your goal.
Small or large. Break it down if it's too big.
Find your motivation.
And bottle your motivation, of course. So imagine what that feeling is going to be like when you've achieved the goal.
Identify your obstacles.
Yeah, we talked about that, didn't we? Rerouting potential pitfalls. So what's going to happen? Being prepared for something not going quite right.
And replace old habits.
Yeah, of course. Habit hooking is really powerful. And also remember to create new habits along the way.
And lastly, monitor your progress. Track how well you're doing, how well you're feeling. And if it's not gone so well, maybe that's one of those obstacles. Write down how you overcame it so that you know that you can do that in the future.
So we're going to ask you to discipline yourself to hop onto our website, futuretoolbox.co.uk. You can find some great tools on there. There is a goal setting tool and also a self-care tracker as well. You can also find us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok. We have a YouTube channel with loads and loads of tools on that. You can subscribe to our regular newsletter, and you can also find us on LinkedIn if you want to reach out, because we are
everywhere.
We are indeed. So we look forward to joining you in the next episode.
Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us for the Z2A of Life Skills with Jules and Mark of the Future Toolbox. Don't forget to head over to their website, which is futuretoolbox.co.uk, where you can find lots of free resources, plus a host of books in the store, as well as subscribing to the membership site. Follow Future Toolbox Instagram, TikTok and Facebook at Future Toolbox, and subscribe to their YouTube channel too.